Wonderland to E-Wasteland. This is what we are going to listen in this podcast. The seriousness of electronic waste or the so-called e-waste calamity that is at our doorsteps now. Welcome back everyone to my second episode, yet another new podcast experience about electronic waste or the e-waste problem and its awareness. The electronic revolution has changed how we lived, communicated, and has brought people around the world closer. We are in a great era of technological advancement and we are a generation obsessed with technology. We have gadgets of all kinds, from our appliances to our computers and laptops to our ever-changing cell phones. We change our gadgets almost as often as we buy new clothes. Every time a new upgrade comes out, we throw our old gadgets away and buy a new one. Can you imagine how much electronic waste we generate? Where does it all go? Yes, a culture of use and throw away. Is it dominating us? We will not allow that. Yes, let's start. E-waste. What is e-waste? E-waste are electronic devices and gadgets nearing or at the end of its useful life. It covers discarded, obsolete electronic devices, cell phones, notebooks, game consoles and their components. Here are some electronic waste facts that you will find interesting and alarming. We generate around 40 million tons of electronic waste every year worldwide. 40 million tons. That's like throwing 800 laptops every second. An average cell phone user replaces their unit once every 18 months. E-waste comprises 70% of our overall toxic waste. Only 12.5% of e-waste is recycled. Yes, it's very sad. Only 12.5% of e-waste is recycled. 85% of our e-waste are sent to landfills and incinerators are mostly burnt and release harmful toxins in the air. Electronics contain lead, which can damage our central nervous system and kidneys. A child's mental development can be affected by low-level exposure to lead. The most common hazardous electronic items include LCD desktop monitors, LCD televisions, plasma televisions, TVs, and computers with CRT, cathode ray tubes. E-waste contains hundreds of substances of which many are toxic. This includes mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium, selenium, chromium, and flame retardants. 80% of e-waste in the US and most of other countries are transported to Asian countries. 300 million computers and 1 billion cell phones go into production annually. It is expected to grow by 8% per year. So, is e-waste bad? Let's see. Many of our e-waste end up in Asia or Africa landfills. The recycling method in these landfills is not the recycling that we have in our mind. E-waste is bad for you and for me and for our planet, and most especially for the workers on the landfills. E-waste are buried or incinerated in landfills where their toxins pollute our land, air, and water. Most of the time, they are sent to developing countries where workers extract the precious metals from the discarded electronics. Workers on e-waste sites are paid an average of $1.5 per day. They are unprotected while working with the toxic substances on the site. They are not professionals. They are the first to inhale the toxins that are released in the air when electronic parts are burned. Many of these workers are children. Why we should recycle electronics? Cell phones and other electronic devices contain precious metals like gold and silver. The US alone throws away cell phones with $60 million worth of gold or silver yearly. Recycling 1 million laptops saves energy equivalent to the energy used by 3,600 homes in the US annually. E-waste consists of non-ferrous and precious metals, alloys, glass, ceramics, organic polymers with toxic content, other substances like stabilizers, fillers, and pigments. Most of the components of e-waste are electronic equipments that can be reused and recycled for materials recovery. There are 10 different types of e-waste. Let me explain to you each type. Type 1. Major appliances. Refrigerators, washing machines, dryers, etc. comes under Type 1 category. Type 2. Small appliances like vacuum cleaners, irons, blenders, fryers, etc. Type 3. Computer and telecommunication appliances like laptops, PCs, telephones, mobile phones, etc. Type 4. Consumer electronics like video and audio equipment, musical instruments, etc. And Type 5 category consists of lighting devices, incandescent light bulbs, fluorescent tubes, gas discharge lamps, etc. Type 6. Electrical and electronic tools, drills, saws, gardening devices, etc. Type 7 consists of toys, leisure, for example, electronic toys, models, sports equipments. And Type 8, medical devices, all medical equipment with the exception of implants. Type 9, monitoring devices, detectors, thermostats, laboratory equipment, etc. And Type 10, vending machines. What can we do about our personal e-waste? Have you thought about that? The above category, what we mentioned, were all comes under general category. But what about our personal e-waste? There is the place for us to think. There are several options when it comes to the proper disposal of your electronic devices. Your old cell phone can still be used by another person. It will be old for you, but it can be new for someone else. Same with your old computer or television. Donate it to friends, charities, or community outreach programs, even to a stranger. This is better than the hazardous e-waste materials ending up in a landfill somewhere. At the same time, you make someone happy. It's a win-win option. Find a certified e-waste recycler. Those who are not certified will just send it off somewhere else where it can do its damage. Be part of the solution and help reduce our electronic waste and save Mother Nature. We cannot stop you from changing your devices as often as you want, but discard your old ones properly. When it comes to e-waste, there is probably another person in the world who can benefit from your unwanted devices. Find them before you throw it away. Let's keep our electronic waste as far away from landfills as possible. E-waste or electronic waste simply refers to electronic devices that are thrown out or recycled. However, behind this simple term is a complex global problem. What exactly should we do with old electronics? They take an immense amount of energy and resources to create, and the materials used mean that they can't be safely put into a landfill like many other types of waste. All this leads to e-waste challenges. Challenges many electronic users aren't aware of, including us. To help put these issues into perspective, let's take a look at the key facts behind e-waste that everyone should know, and some excellent reasons that everyone should try to recycle. Currently, the amount of worldwide e-waste generation is expected to exceed 50 million tons by 2021, with an annual growth between 4% and 5%. Estimates say that around 55 million tons of e-waste are created every year. But this number keeps climbing due to industry practices and expansion. So it can be difficult to predict and precise a number. E-waste accounts for around 70% of toxic waste. This is a problem because currently our methods of dealing with e-waste fall far behind the amount of e-waste being produced. While other toxic waste is much behind the amount of waste being produced, other waste are still sent to incinerators or landfills, for example, where it's typically burnt or melted down. This is far from an ideal solution for toxic waste. In fact, it can make problems even worse due to what e-waste contains. E-waste contains many toxic materials as told before, including mercury, lead, arsenic and cadmium. Any idea how much toxicity they are producing? Many different metals and chemicals are used to create things like LCD screens, computer chips and other materials that we use in so many electronic devices. Many of these materials are toxic, and when e-waste is improperly disposed of, they can leak into the environment and cause long-term problems. Lead is one of the biggest culprits and can cause neurological damage in humans exposed to high amounts in the environment. Burning e-waste tends to release toxic particles into the air, where they settle in the surrounding landscape or are breathed in by nearby people. E-waste also contains a lot of gold and silver. Happy to hear that. Yes, one reason people, especially smaller operations, try to reclaim e-waste is to harvest valuable metals. E-waste includes gold and silver components, both excellent conductors that can be harvested. Improperly disposed e-waste not only causes environment problems, it also wastes a lot of gold and silver that could otherwise be reused. Unfortunately, many current methods of harvesting these metals are inefficient and cause additional problems. As I told before, around 80% of the e-waste in the US is shipped to Asian countries or African countries. Some reclamation and disposal systems in Asia are efficient, but others are very poor and creating serious environmental consequences. As we know that Earth is what we have in common for all. Some sites are simply burnt pits in the middle of a village, which obviously creates a lot of problems when getting rid of toxic waste. However, shipping the waste to Asia is currently the cheapest option for many developed countries. Recycling e-waste is good for the economy. There is another option for e-waste, reusing or recycling it. Not only is this safer, but it has economic benefits too. Reports estimate that reusing or e-recycling devices like computers can create almost 300 more jobs per year than other disposal. But only around 20% of e-waste is recycled. Small electronic devices create more e-waste than large electronics. The majority of e-waste is from small electronic devices. Keep that in mind, not large devices like computers. Small devices tend to be much more common. Just think, a house can have a lot of smart devices and smartphones, but only one or two computers. And they tend to be replaced a lot more often. Only half of the countries have laws on e-waste recycling. And most all electronics are simply kept For now, around 75% of e-waste is usually just kept in the house in the form of old phones, etc. Why? Because most of the people aren't aware or aren't sure what to do with them. From tradings to e-recycling options, so they tend to collect dust. When these devices are casually thrown away, they only increase the problem. E-waste continues to grow faster. As 2019 World Economic Forum report, it points out e-waste is currently the fastest growing type of e-waste in the world. Other than any other waste, e-waste is growing much faster, which is quickly compounding the problems that the industry already has. More e-recycling options and better information on how to deal with e-waste is necessary to deal with this growing trend. Recycling e-waste is practiced both formally and informally. Proper or formal e-waste recycling usually involves disassembling the electronics, separating and categorizing the contents by material and cleaning them. Items are then shredded mechanically for further sorting with advanced separation technologies. Companies must adhere to health and safety rules and use pollution control technologies that reduce the health and environmental hazards of handling e-waste. All this makes formal recycling expensive. As a result, many companies and countries illegally export their e-waste to developing countries where recycling is cheaper. The US, second largest producer of e-waste after China, produced 10 million tons of e-waste in 2012. Okay, it's 8 years before, but still, the size have grown larger. Over 64 pounds per person. And a study done by the watchdog group Basel Action Network using trackers, however, found that 40% of e-waste supposedly recycled was actually exported. Most of it ended up in developing countries, usually Asia, as we discussed before, where informal recycling is typically unlicensed and unregulated. At these informal recycling workshops, men, women, and children recover valuable materials by burning devices to melt away non-valuable materials. They are just burning the materials, using mercury and acids to recover gold, and dismantling devices by hand to reclaim other materials of value. E-waste could have horrible impacts on our environment and eventually our health. But some artists are doing their part by creating e-waste art. Hope you have gone through some in Google. You wouldn't expect the word e-waste to inspire creativity, but artists all over the world are doing just that, being creative. E-waste art is exactly what it sounds like, creating art by recycling electronics that are no longer in use. The goal of these artisans is to raise awareness of e-waste and how to reduce it. By bringing awareness to the increasing rate of e-waste and its hazards, these artists are doing what environmental activists have been trying to do for years. Get more people to recycle their e-waste. All we needed was to convince more people to recycle. So we decided to build something that people would hopefully want to talk about, said the photographer and artist Benjamin von Bohm. He was the one who enabled many artists to come into this area. It's a lot easier to start a conversation about an art piece that by throwing random facts and figures at people. These artistic conversation starters just might be the best way to increase the rate of recycling. While e-waste art is educational and beautiful, there are many other benefits to recycling your unwanted electronics. While the various components in our electronics are safe when in use, once they end up in a landfill, they become biohazards. The toxins in our e-waste can seep into our soil or bodies of water and create a health hazard for people and the environment. Recycling e-waste also decreases the amount of money that manufacturers spend to create new products. And the best part is that these recycled parts came to be used over and over and over again and never lose their usefulness. For example, did you know that 1 metric ton of electronic scrap from personal computers contain more gold than recovered from 17 tons of gold ore? Exciting, right? Okay, recycling your e-waste. On average, a UAE resident generates 17.2 kilograms of e-waste per annum. According to the Global E-Waste Monitor report in the year 2016, the total e-waste generated by the UAE was 134,000 tons, a figure that has only increased in the years after. Even though the UAE government has recognized this and started taking action to counter this threat so early, a large part of the population is yet to be made aware of this reality. Wondering how you can do your part? Recycling your e-waste is as easy as finding an established e-waste recycler, where our government of UAE is doing a very much good deal. And my upcoming podcast will be giving you more information related to the authorized recycling of electronic waste in UAE and the greater part done by the UAE government and its visionaries for the nation that inhales sustainable development in its each breath. So stay tuned and have a nice year end. Thank you all for listening.